Joining us now on ICANN Media here at the N-Form Petroleum Safety Conference is Andrew Hopkins. And Andrew, you've come all the way from Australia to be one of the keynote speakers here. You're at the Australian National University. Tell us about the topic you were talking about.
Well, the topic was designing a mindful organisation. Now, what this is all about is when we do research into the causes of big accidents, we find that there were always warning signs which were ignored beforehand. Had those warning signs been identified, responded to, the accident wouldn't have happened. So the issue is to develop organisations which can attend mindfully to those warning signs and respond to them, rather than what so often happens is that organisations and individuals simply deny the significance of those warning signs. They find ways of reinterpreting them to suggest that they're not really a concern after all. And we need to be alert to those, what I've called that culture of denial, that way in which we deny the significance of those warning signs and really focus on them so that we can learn from them.
What causes a culture of denial? Is it pressure from above to get a job done?
I think it's the human tendency to want to get on with the job, and some of that's pressure from above, but it's also a human tendency to want to get on with the job. And so we want to deny anything that's going to get in the way of us getting on with the job. So there's all sort of psychological mechanisms which encourage us to do that.
You talk about collective mindfulness. What is that exactly?
Well, when I use the term mindfulness, people often assume I'm talking in the first instance about individuals and the importance of individual mindfulness. Now, that's true. It's important we have mindful, that is risk-aware individuals on the job. But you can't get people to think in those terms unless the organisation itself is structured in such a way to encourage that kind of thinking. So that's why I'm talking about organisational mindfulness, or collective, meaning organisational mindfulness. That's where you have to start. You have to start with systems and structures which encourage people to behave in that way.
Is part of the reason the fact that a certain level of risk is acceptable?
Well, yes, people accept a certain level of risk. The question is, when we're dealing with catastrophic risk, people don't understand what it is they're dealing with. And when we get these warning signs, they are ambiguous, they are uncertain. We need to have systems in place to first of all identify those signs and then think hard about what they mean, because they may be benign. They may not actually be indicators of danger, but if they are indicators of danger, we need to know about it. Now, people don't knowingly take risks where there are catastrophic hazards involved. They may take risks in their daily activities, but not where there are catastrophic hazards involved. The problem is these things are not properly understood, and we need systems to get people to understand them better.
How do you go about the decision-making process? Because if it's somebody that's on the ground level that sees that there could be a problem, perhaps it gets reported to a manager. Is it the manager? Is it the higher-ups? Who should be the decision-maker here? How do you go about that process?
Well, the most important thing is to make sure that no one suppresses it, that information is available and will move up the line far enough, up the management line far enough to a point where someone will take a responsible decision about it. So the key is to get someone to take a responsible decision, and that usually means responding in writing, sending an email back to the person who's raised the issue and saying, thank you, this is an important issue, we're going to do this about it. Or, on the other hand, thank you, but no, we're not going to do anything about it for reasons X, Y, and Z. But the important thing is to get that response back to the reporter, because that encourages the responder to do so in a conscientious way.
You mentioned having a devil's advocate as part of a decision-making group. Tell us about that.
Well, it's an interesting phenomenon in that when you get decisions, very often when you've got a warning sign, something's gone wrong, you assemble an incident control group to think about it, and it's a small group, maybe 5 people. And small group decision making, there's a very strong tendency for groups to want to make decisions unanimously. There's no logical reason why it should be unanimous, but that's the way we all operate. So anyone who's wanting to raise doubts and go against the dominant view of the group is going to be squashed in that environment. The person who's alerting us to making a claim that there is a warning sign that we need to take seriously is going to be suppressed in that environment in the interest of achieving group consensus. So what you need to do is give someone the job, it's actually their job, to assert the contrary, to assert that this warning needs to be taken seriously, and the rest of the group then has to argue against him or her and take a decision in the light of what the devil's advocate is saying. And that way you get more responsible decision making.
Andrew, thank you for your time.
My pleasure.
We've been chatting with Andrew Hopkins here on ICANN Media.